The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, right at my feet. "Move it, parking boy!" The woman's voice cut through the Christmas jazz echoing from the penthouse above. "Can't you see we're trying to get to our cars?" I stood there, my dark suit soaked from the December rain, staring at the broken glass sparkling under the lobby's crystal chandelier. 3 years. 3 years since I'd last stood in this lobby. 3 years since everything fell apart. "Excuse me?" I looked up at the woman in the designer red dress, her diamond necklace catching the light like tiny stars. Behind her, a group of men in expensive suits were laughing, their faces flushed with alcohol and arrogance. "Hey everyone! Before we dive deeper into Marcus's story, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city, state, or country in the comments. I love connecting with viewers from all over the world. Don't excuse me us." One of the men stepped forward, adjusting his Rolex. "We're from the Morrison and Associates Christmas party upstairs. This is a private building. You shouldn't even be in here." Morrison and Associates. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. The same law firm that had destroyed my life, piece by piece, 3 years ago. The same firm that was now celebrating Christmas in what used to be my building. "I'm here for a business meeting," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. My briefcase felt heavy in my hand, filled with documents I'd been carrying for months, waiting for the right moment. "Business meeting?" the woman snapped, her red lipstick gleaming under the lights. "At this hour, on Christmas Eve? What kind of business are you in? Cleaning services?" She looked me up and down dismissively. My suit was expensive once, 3 years ago. Now it was worn at the edges, the kind of tired elegance that screamed former success. The security guard, Tony, though he didn't recognize me, stepped forward awkwardly. "Sir, maybe you could show some identification or—" "It's fine, Tony." I looked at him directly for the first time. Still the same kind eyes, same worried expression he always wore when things got tense. "I was just leaving anyway." As I turned toward the glass doors, I heard one of the men chuckle. Probably some small-time consultant trying to get meetings with real businesses. These wannabe entrepreneurs think they can network anywhere these days. The rain was coming down harder now, each drop feeling like ice against my face. I stood under the building's awning, looking up at the floors that used to be mine. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them back inside, already forgetting about the parking attendant they'd just dismissed. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just some random businessman seeking shelter from the rain. I was Marcus Chen. And before my life imploded, before the lawsuits and the bankruptcy and the divorce that took everything I'd built, I owned this building. My phone buzzed. A text message from my business partner. "Hotel meeting confirmed for 9 p.m. Victoria Morrison will be there. This is our shot." I smiled for the first time in hours, wiping the rain from my face. 3 years of planning, 3 years of building a new company from nothing, 3 years of working 18-hour days to claw my way back from the bottom. Tonight, Victoria Morrison and her associates would learn that destroying Marcus Chen's life had been the biggest mistake they'd ever made. Time to go to that meeting. The Palmer House Hotel lobby was buzzing with Christmas Eve energy. Families checking in for holiday stays, business travelers trying to catch late flights, tourists taking selfies under the massive chandelier. I sat in the corner of the elegant bar, nursing a whiskey and watching the entrance. My business partner, David Kim, had secured this meeting through months of careful networking. Tonight, Morrison and Associates thought they were meeting with potential clients, a new tech startup looking for legal representation. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. "You sure about this, Marcus?" David's voice crackled through my earpiece. He was upstairs in our reserved conference room, setting up the presentation that would change everything. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "There was no going back the moment they destroyed my life," I whispered, adjusting my tie. I'd bought a new suit for tonight, my first expensive purchase in 3 years. "Are the cameras ready?" "Everything's recording. Legal team is standing by." Speaking of standing by, I'm curious, where are you watching this unfold from? Are you in the US like Marcus or somewhere else entirely? Let me know in the comments. At 8:55 p.m., they walked in. Victoria Morrison led the group, her silver hair perfectly styled, wearing the same predatory smile I remembered from depositions. Behind her came 3 associates, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on Christmas Eve. They didn't see me. Why would they? In their minds, Marcus Chen was finished, a cautionary tale they told at parties about what happens when you overextend yourself in real estate. I waited until they were in the elevator, then took the stairs. 2 floors up, heart-pounding, briefcase in hand, everything I'd worked for over the past 3 years came down to the next hour. David met me at the conference room door. They just sat down. Victoria's already complaining about meeting this late. Perfect. She hates having her time wasted. I straightened my jacket one final time. Let's give her something to really complain about. I opened the door and walked into the conference room with confidence I hadn't felt in years. Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Victoria looked up from her phone, and for a moment her face was completely blank. Then recognition hit her like a physical blow. Marcus, she breathed, her voice barely audible. Hello, Victoria. It's been a while. The 3 associates looked confused, glancing between their boss and me like they were watching a tennis match. What? How? Victoria stammered, something I'd never seen her do in all our previous encounters. How am I here? How am I not bankrupt and broken? I smiled, pulling out my chair at the head of the conference table. That's an interesting story. Please sit down. I have a presentation prepared. David dimmed the lights and fired up the projector. The first slide appeared on the wall, Phoenix Dynamics, rising from the ashes. 3 years ago, I began, clicking to the next slide, Victoria Morrison and her firm destroyed my real estate empire through what I later discovered was systematic fraud and manipulation. Victoria half rose from her chair. This is entrapment. I'm leaving. You're welcome to leave, but I think you'll want to hear what I have to say first. I clicked to the next slide, a photograph of her shaking hands with Meridian Development Group at my foreclosure auction. Especially since the FBI will be very interested in this meeting. She sank back into her chair. You see, losing everything taught me something valuable about business, Victoria. It taught me that sometimes you have to destroy the old foundation completely before you can build something stronger. The next slide showed Phoenix Dynamics' financial growth over 3 years, from 0 to $50 million in revenue. While you were celebrating your victory over me, I was learning. I spent 6 months sleeping in my car, working odd jobs, studying every detail of what you'd done to me. And then I met David. David stepped forward. I'm a cybersecurity expert, former NSA. When Marcus told me his story, I offered to help him do something unprecedented. We didn't just start a new company, I continued. We started a company specifically designed to investigate and expose corporate fraud. Phoenix Dynamics has spent 3 years building ironclad cases against corrupt law firms. Victoria's face had gone completely white. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I clicked to the next slide. Bank records, email chains, phone logs. Phoenix Dynamics' first major case was Morrison and Associates. We've been building this investigation for 3 years. The room was dead silent, except for the hum of the projector. You're probably wondering how a failed businessman like me managed to build a $50 million company, I said, advancing to the final slide. The answer is simple. You didn't destroy Marcus Chen. You created him. Victoria's hands were shaking as she stared at the evidence on the screen. 3 years of investigation, condensed into slides that told the story of her firm's systematic corruption. This is impossible, she whispered. You lost everything. You were bankrupt. I was never bankrupt, Victoria. I walked to the window, looking out at Chicago's skyline. That was the first lie you told yourself. I transferred all my remaining assets to David before the foreclosure. Legal, clean, and completely above board. David clicked to the next presentation slide. What Marcus lost were his leveraged properties, the ones Morrison and Associates deliberately pushed into foreclosure. What he kept was his cash flow and his brain. While you were dividing up my properties among your friends, I continued, I was studying your methods, learning how you operated, building relationships with your other victims. The slide changed to show a network diagram. Dozens of names, companies, and connection lines. Phoenix Dynamics isn't just my company, Victoria. It's a coalition. Every person you've destroyed over the past 5 years is now a client, an investor, or a witness. One of Victoria's associates, Patterson, I remembered, leaned forward. What do you want, Marcus? Money? A settlement? I laughed. Money? I'm worth more now than I ever was in real estate. Phoenix Dynamics has government contracts, Fortune 500 clients, and a reputation for excellence. Why would I want your money? Quick pause. Before we see what Marcus really wants, I'd love to know where you're following along from. Are you in Chicago like Marcus, somewhere else in the US, or watching from another country entirely? Drop it in the comments. Then what? Victoria found her voice again, though it was strained. What's the point of all this? I turned back to face the room. The point is justice, but not the kind you're thinking. David clicked to a new slide. Morrison and Associates, 3 years of fraud. Every case you've handled since 2022 has been contaminated by conflicts of interest, I explained. Your firm has been systematically defrauding clients while enriching yourselves through backdoor investments. You see, when you destroyed my life, you made one critical error. You assumed I was like your other victims, someone who would disappear quietly, someone who would be too ashamed or too broken to fight back. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the conference table. Instead, you created your worst nightmare, a victim with resources, intelligence, and nothing left to lose. I pressed play on an audio file. Victoria's voice filled the room. Chen was getting too close to the truth about our Meridian investment. We need to accelerate the timeline and make sure he can never recover. Victoria's face went ashen. Where did you get that? Your Christmas party 2 years ago. Phoenix Dynamics provides security consulting for corporate events. We were hired to monitor your firm's holiday party for competitive intelligence threats. I smiled. Ironic, isn't it? David clicked to the next slide. Federal Investigation Timeline. The FBI has been building a RICO case against Morrison and Associates for 18 months, David explained. Phoenix Dynamics has been their primary source of evidence. Victoria slumped in her chair. This will destroy everything. Yes, it will. I sat down across from her. Your firm will be dissolved. Your assets will be frozen. Your clients will sue you into oblivion. Your reputation will be destroyed. I leaned forward. In other words, you'll experience exactly what you put me through. The only difference is that your destruction will be permanent. Patterson was frantically taking notes. There has to be something we can do. Some kind of deal? There is, I interrupted. Victoria can tell the truth. I pulled out a thick legal document and placed it in front of her. This is a full confession detailing every fraud, every conflict of interest, every illegal act Morrison and Associates has committed over the past 5 years. Sign it, and I'll recommend leniency to the federal prosecutors. Victoria stared at the document like it was a death sentence. And if I don't, then you'll find out exactly how it feels to lose everything you've built, I said quietly, the same way I did. She picked up the pen with trembling fingers. You know, she said without looking up, I actually respected you once. Before all this, you were a good businessman. I still am a good businessman, Victoria. I just learned not to trust the wrong people. She signed her name at the bottom of the confession. What happens now? She asked. I stood up and straightened my tie. Now you go home to your family. You enjoy Christmas with them. And tomorrow you call your attorney and prepare for the consequences of your choices. As Victoria and her associates filed out of the conference room, she stopped at the door. Marcus, she said quietly, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I looked at her for a long moment. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. After they left, David and I sat alone in the conference room, the evidence of 3 years' work still glowing on the projection screen. "So what's next?" David asked. I smiled. "Next, we help all the other victims. Phoenix Dynamics has a waiting list of cases. Corporate fraud doesn't sleep, and neither do we." I walked to the window again, looking out at the city where I'd lost everything and built it back stronger. "Besides," I added, "we have a company to run. And unlike some people in this city, we actually deliver what we promise." The next morning, I woke up in my penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. Not the same penthouse I'd lost 3 years ago. This one was bigger, better, and bought with money I'd earned rather than borrowed. My phone was buzzing with messages. News of Victoria's confession had leaked overnight, and every business reporter in Chicago wanted a statement. But first, I had somewhere to be. I drove to my old building, the one Morrison and Associates had stolen from me. The same building where they'd humiliated me the night before, not knowing who I really was. This time, I didn't park in the loading zone. I pulled into the executive parking space that used to be mine. Tony was at his security desk when I walked in, wearing a tailored suit and carrying myself like the successful businessman I'd become again. "Good morning, Tony." He looked up, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Mr. Chen, sir, about last night." "You were just doing your job," I said with a smile. "No harm done." I took the elevator to the top floor, where Morrison and Associates had their offices. The same floor where they'd celebrated my destruction just hours before. Before we see what happens next, I have to ask, where are you watching this confrontation from? Whether you're in the US or anywhere else in the world, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. The receptionist looked nervous when I approached her desk. "Sir, I'm sorry, but Ms. Morrison isn't taking any meetings today." "She'll take this one," I said calmly, handing her my business card. "Tell her Marcus Chen from Phoenix Dynamics is here." 5 minutes later, I was sitting in Victoria's corner office, the same office where she'd once told me my empire was crumbling. She looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. "You came to gloat," she said without looking up from her desk. "I came to make you an offer." That got her attention. She looked up sharply. "What kind of offer?" I pulled out a contract and placed it on her desk. "Phoenix Dynamics is acquiring the assets of Morrison and Associates. We'll be taking over all your legitimate cases and ensuring your clients are properly represented." Victoria stared at the document. "You want to buy my firm?" "I want to save your clients from the chaos you're about to create. When the FBI raids begin next week, your cases will be in limbo. People who did nothing wrong will suffer because of your choices." She flipped through the contract pages. "This is generous. More than generous. I'm not doing it for you, Victoria. I'm doing it for them." I stood up and walked to her window, looking down at the street below. 3 years ago, you taught me something important about power. You showed me that people in positions of authority have a responsibility to those who trust them. "And what lesson was that?" she asked bitterly. "That when you betray that trust, you don't just destroy your victims, you destroy yourself." I turned back to face her. "Phoenix Dynamics represents everything Morrison and Associates could have been. Honest, ethical, focused on justice rather than profit." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you really here, Marcus?" "Because 3 years ago I was angry. I wanted revenge. I wanted to see you suffer the way you made me suffer." I sat back down across from her. "But building Phoenix Dynamics taught me something else. Success isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming so good at what you do that your enemies become irrelevant." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "Phoenix Dynamics is already being contacted by half your client list. By tomorrow, we'll have acquired the other half. With or without your cooperation, Victoria, your firm is finished. The only question is whether you want to help us make the transition easier for the people who trusted you." She stared at the contract for another minute, then picked up her pen. "You know," she said as she signed, "I never thought you'd recover from what we did to you." "Neither did I," I admitted. But losing everything taught me the difference between what I owned and who I was. You can take away someone's possessions, Victoria. You can't take away their character. After she signed the papers, I stood to leave. "Marcus," she called after me, "what happens to me now?" I paused at her office door. "That's up to you. You can spend the next few years feeling sorry for yourself, or you can figure out how to make amends for what you've done. The federal charges will be what they are, but after you serve your time, you'll still be alive. You'll still have choices to make." I looked back at her one final time. Make better ones. 1 year later, I stood in the lobby of my old building on Christmas morning. But this time, I wasn't a stranger seeking shelter from the rain. I was here for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Phoenix Dynamics had purchased the entire building 6 months earlier. Today, we were officially opening our new headquarters, 40 floors dedicated to corporate investigation, victim advocacy, and ethical business practices. Tony approached me, wearing a proud smile and a new security chief uniform. "Mr. Chen, the reporters are ready for your statement." I looked around the transformed lobby. Where Morrison and Associates once celebrated the destruction of their victims, Phoenix Dynamics now displayed a wall of success stories, clients we'd helped, cases we'd solved, justice we'd delivered. "In a minute, Tony, I'm waiting for someone." At exactly 9 a.m., Victoria Morrison walked through the glass doors. She looked different, older, humbler, wearing a simple black dress instead of designer clothes. She'd been released from federal prison 3 weeks ago after serving 10 months. "One last time before we wrap this story up, I'd love to know where you've been following Marcus's journey from. Whether you're in Chicago, somewhere else in the US, or anywhere around the world, drop your location in the comments." "Hello, Marcus." "Victoria, thank you for coming." We stood there for a moment, two people whose lives had been forever changed by the events that started in this very lobby. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But Phoenix Dynamics is about second chances, about proving that people can change." I handed her an envelope. "There's something I want to offer you." She opened it carefully. Inside was a job application for Phoenix Dynamics. "Paralegal position," I explained. "Entry level. You'd be working with our victim advocacy team, helping people who've been defrauded by corrupt firms." Victoria stared at the application. "You want me to work for you?" "I want you to work for justice. Real justice." I gestured toward the wall of success stories. "Every person up there was once where I was 3 years ago, destroyed, broken, convinced their lives were over. We helped them rebuild." "Why?" she asked. "After everything I did to you? Because destroying you won't bring back the 3 years you took from me, but helping you become someone better. That might actually mean something." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this." "No, you don't," I agreed. "That's what makes it grace instead of justice." She looked around the lobby one more time, then back at the application in her hands. "Entry level?" she asked with the hint of a smile. "Everyone starts somewhere, even former federal prisoners." "I'll think about it," she said. "I hope you do." After she left, I walked to the podium where reporters were waiting. Camera lights illuminated the lobby, and I could see my reflection in the windows, a successful businessman who'd learned that true victory isn't about defeating your enemies. It's about becoming the person you were meant to be, regardless of what anyone else does to you. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, 3 years ago, I lost everything in this building. Today, Phoenix Dynamics opens our headquarters in this same building. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about resilience." I looked directly into the cameras. "To everyone watching who's facing their darkest moment, who's been betrayed, cheated, or broken by people they trusted, I want you to know something. Your story isn't over. Your worst day doesn't define your future. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover who you really are. Sometimes you have to fall all the way to the bottom to learn how high you can actually rise." As the reporters asked their questions and the cameras rolled, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From a successful businessman to a broken man sleeping in his car, to the owner of one of Chicago's most respected investigation firms. It hadn't been about destroying Victoria Morrison or Morrison and Associates. It had been about rebuilding Marcus Chen into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than he'd ever been before. My phone buzzed with a text message from David. New case just came in. Corporate fraud in Seattle. Big one. I smiled, straightening my tie. Phoenix Dynamics had work to do. After all, somewhere out there, someone was having the worst day of their life. Someone was being betrayed by people they trusted. Someone was learning what it felt like to lose everything. And tomorrow, they'd start the long journey back to who they were meant to be, just like I had. Remind us that our worst moments don't define us. Our response to them does. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more tales of resilience, justice, and the power of rebuilding your life stronger than before. And remember, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're facing, your comeback story is waiting to be written.